All right. Hey, guess what?
What?
We have our friend Buster to talk about some shit. Talk about some shit.
All right,
Oh, here we go. We're in the shit now, boys.
this is Buster Corp reporting about this movie at great risk. So this is Justice League Cross Ruby Part One. We'll get to what that means in a
Oh
sec.
my god, the beginning of the epic saga.
Yeah, I guess. So this is based off a comic book, as
Buster,
things
Buster.
are.
This is nowhere near based.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. It's nowhere near based. This is adapted from a comic book. We'll say that. I think there's no positive words in adaptation. So. And in the comic book, the Justice League are basically AU versions that are just inserted into the RWBY world.
Oh,
But
it's
in
not
this
the actual boys?
No, but in this movie, it is the actual boys. They're isekai'd into their AU versions.
What?
Yeah, it's weird.
Please tell me Superman got hit by a bus.
He did not. They
Oh.
That
basically
looks like that doesn't look like Superman. That looks like fucking John.
It is. It's very much a John look, but they still try to act it like it's Superman, and and there's a bunch of inconsistencies with Ruby's own world at the beginning of this movie, but that actually is a plot point because they do explain it as part of the big twist of this movie. We'll get to it. To start things off, how is the crossover balance? Like, as you know, crossover you got.
Is that Vixen at the end?
Yeah, Vixen's in this movie. Yeah, she barely does anything. She's just basically just people there.
Oh, like like everything else they've done with Vixen.
So as I was saying, the crossover balance, it's pretty bad in this movie. Like, they shit all over DC. Superman gets depowered, which is a crossover trope I really hate, where it's like, let's depower.
That's a fucking DC Comics trope I really hate.
Yeah, it's not great. Like, Superman can't fly. All he got is the laser eyes, and that's lame. Like, that's like one of the least interesting parts of Superman, in my opinion. So it's just like, that whole edgy bullshit. I will say Superman's probably the best characterized here. That's not saying much. He is the most comic book character.
He feels the most accurate to who he's supposed to be, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and he is the best voice acted here. Meanwhile, on the other side, Batman is the worst voice acted and is the worst characterized. He is literally just angsty teenage boy for some reason. I don't know why they decided to do that.
Because they've read Tumblr posts about Batman and never read a Batman comic.
One of the worst cases of shitting on DC they do is when they were gassing up Grimm as like, oh, the Justice League have never fight anything like this. The Grimm are like the mooks of the RWBY world. Literally, the main villain of this movie is Kilgore. And, like, spoilers, Kilgore doesn't get a model. He just made the virtual reality they're in. Like, apparently he possessed the Flash, which is the twist they have. It's like, oh, the Flash was the villain all along, and he was possessed by Kilgore, but we don't get to fight Kilgore. Cyborg has another one of the worst lines in this movie. You've learned how to adapt thanks to childhood trauma, he says in a joking tone towards one of the characters who's gone through childhood trauma. One of the characters in the RWBY world's like, I can't believe you got a character called Batman! And I'm like, he's an iconic comic book character. Why are we still making jokes like this?
But we call our character Genius Flopplebaum, and that would be totally weird to the DC characters, wouldn't it?
The entire movie just feels like a desperate attempt to make RWBY relevant and hip with it and like try to gas up its elements, but that just utterly failed. Yeah, baby's first irony is a lot of this movie's humor. And it's like nothing too harmful. There's not like any super harmful messages, but it's just so kind of frustrating with its jokes and its plot. And yeah, it just doesn't help that like there's not like you can tell this movie is like very cheaply made. It looks worse than the actual show at times. And then like the thing that cracks me up is that like because this is called part 1, they do this dramatic sequel bait where the RWBY characters wake up in their real world because it was all virtual simulation. And they're like, "Oh, someone must have done it in our world." And they basically just play this dramatic like music that sounds like we're going to a funeral like throughout the whole credits and I'm like I'm not watching part 2. This was terrible.
So it's more of like both the Justice League and RWBY get sent to Sword Art Online, and then like they both have to deal with it.
Yeah, but it's so focused on RWBY. There's not a single DC Comics location in this movie.
Looking at this fucking still, there's not a single DC character in here.
Yeah, they're all just like stupidly mischaracterized. There's like elements of like, oh, that's kind of what DC characters.
Is
but,
that
like,
dude in red on the end there supposed to be Flash?
yes, they made Flash Sun Wukong for some reason, even though
They already have a Sun Wukong.
exactly, and he doesn't
I
show
hate
up in this
this.
movie.
This is bad. I'm not watching it.
Don't. It's the worst movie I've seen this year so far. Not great. Didn't like it.
It's a lot of gross.
Yeah, especially with like Rooster Teeth's whole shtick. It is just. I'm not. I don't. I think this is the last. I don't think I'm gonna sit through part 2 of this. I think I'm done with Rooster Teeth. Like I tried.
Yeah, it's fair, bud.
Yeah, I'm just between the Genlock season 2 shit and all the behind the scenes and now this.